months. Good to see you. We started off the first item on the, let me rephrase that. The first item on the agenda today was a briefing on Ebola by the health authority for the city of Houston, Dr. David Parse, and the health department director, Stephen Williams. I think it was a good overview of the situation, and I believe that council members and the public had an opportunity to view their presentations come away with a much better understanding of it. Didn't touch it.
Find your microphone down there.
Whose microphone was that? Ebola is a very, very serious disease with deadly consequences. But Ebola is not a new disease. It has popped up in certain parts of Africa for nearly 50 years. It can be managed with modern medical practices. And in a world in which, in a matter of hours, anyone can get from one side of the globe to another, these sorts of diseases can pop up anywhere. We have to make sure that we don't inadvertently do something that would prevent someone who might have been exposed to Ebola from coming forward. We also have to make sure that we don't do anything to overreact to something that actually has not occurred in Houston yet. Our first responders, our hospitals are brushing up on their protocols, but a reminder to folks that Ebola is not transmitted by asymptomatic people. Because if you don't have any symptoms, it's not going to be transmitted. And B, a lot of other things that happen to us in the fall, particularly the flu, start off the same way that Ebola might. If you have not traveled in Africa, if you have not had exposure to someone who has, not all of Africa, if you haven't traveled to the hotspots in Africa and you haven't had exposure to someone who is being treated for Ebola, there's no reason to expect that you have anything other than the flu. But as we do every year, we ask people to take normal precautions. We ask people to take flu shots. And we ask people who are sick, not feeling well, stay home. Call your doctor if you are concerned, and allow them, your healthcare provider, to help walk you through if you have any particular risk factors that would prompt further intervention. Do you all have questions about the presentation?
So there we have the largest medical center in the world, fourth largest city in the country, very active court, obviously. What's the likelihood, in your opinion, that we might have a case of Houston?
There is no doubt that we will have a case of Ebola eventually. The expectation is that we will have a case of Ebola. It might not be with this outbreak. It might be 5 years from now with the next outbreak of Ebola. But because we are a huge city with a large international population that comes in and out, it's going to happen eventually. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, and it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily happen with this outbreak. Ebola first came onto the Western radar in the 70s, and there is no vaccine, there is no cure, but there is treatment. And with a good isolation ward and modern medical practices, the chance of someone allowing their own immune system to kick in and help them survive a disease goes way up. And so we do have the advantage of having the Texas Medical Center here. But there shouldn't be an expectation that, you know, for example, the fact that sort of random chance that the first case came into in the United States, came into Dallas. Dallas is perfectly capable of handling that disease. Any other major city with high-level trauma center, for example, or fully functioning isolation wards should be able to successfully manage the disease. We wouldn't be considered a center of excellence where people would come here specifically for treatment. There are other hospitals that would do that. But our expectation is that we have to be ready if a Houstonian exhibits symptoms of the disease.
Mayor, the hospitals tell us they are prepared for a potential case. How do you, as mayor, know that they really are prepared?
Ebola is not the only disease for which we train. And our protocols for dealing with highly contagious diseases or infectious diseases changed after 9/11, and we really became aware of how vulnerable the United States could be to a terrorist attack. So a lot of the things that we would do in response to Ebola are also something that we practice annually in our updates on our overall emergency preparedness response for terrorist attacks. And so the weakest link in any system is the individual on the ground who fails to remember their training, fails to follow the appropriate protocols, and somehow slips up. It's one of the ironies, as Dr. Peirce pointed out today, is for the unfortunate gentleman in Dallas. His name is
Duncan.
Duncan. While there are 2 people who treated him in the hospital who are now being monitored for Ebola, the family he's staying with is in isolation and has shown no symptoms. And so I think it's that kind of mystery is what causes people to be concerned. People want to know, if I do this, I won't get it. If I do that, I won't get it. Until we figure out exactly how the 2 nurses in Dallas might have been exposed, there's going to be some anxiety. But again, there has not been any case of Ebola in Houston to date, and we want to be aware and cautious. We don't want to overreact.
Mayor, just on the hospital preparedness, it seems like, Dr. Peirce and all the local, you've got Med Center, all these folks, frontline people, major hospitals are pretty prepared.
The state of Texas has set up a task force. The Houston region has set up a task force that will communicate to the state of Texas task force. Statewide task forces and groups are working with the CDC, so at all levels there is communication.
How much do you think the city of Houston working on getting some of the like the suburban hospitals, the smaller hospitals that may not have as much staff, or they're not used to some of the high-level disease preparedness that goes on a regular basis in the city of Florida?
Any acute care hospital has people on staff who, and I don't know the term, they have people on staff who are tasked with this kind of infection control and making sure that diseases don't spread within the hospital. Every one of those acute care hospitals in the region has been communicated with, and the protocols that will work on normal disease control will generally work for Ebola. And I did that one. I'm so sorry. It's like your bad day. Can you hear that if I hit it a few times? And then
On a different topic,
yeah.
there have been a couple cases where the automotive board and a few other boards have had a matter appealed, and there were questions about the record. Is there going to be a way of, I don't know, training board members or doing something to make sure that this doesn't happen again?
It's not the responsibility of the board members to make sure that the record is complete. It is the responsibility of city staff to make sure the record is complete. And that message, I think, has been delivered very strongly.
Mayor, why is it necessary for your city attorney to subpoena sermons and other materials from churches?
Let me just say that one word in a very long legal document, which I know nothing about it, would never have read, and I'm vilified coast to coast. It's a normal day at the office for me. But you're going to have to ask the city attorney that question. Do you have any other questions for me?
Do you have an estimate of it?
Of course, but I'm going to let the city attorney answer the...
But you said, you mentioned you just found out about it
Yesterday.
Can you give us your reaction about finding out about it?
Despite what some folks have said, we're not interested at all in what someone may have preached about me or the GLBT community. It is part of this discovery process for a particular, the lawsuit around our petition challenge for the equal rights ordinance. And the wording may have been, no, there's no question the wording was overly broad, but I also think there was some deliberate misinterpretation on the other side. The goal is to find out if there were specific instructions given on how the petition should be accurately filled out. It's not about what did you preach on last Sunday. And it should have been clarified. It will be clarified, and people are rightly concerned if a government entity tries to in any way inhibit religious speech. That is not the intent, and it certainly actually on its face was not what was going to happen with this request.
I just got an email. I guess Senator Cruz has jumped in on this, and he's saying that,
Am I surprised?
he's saying that this is, I guess, assault on religious liberty and Bill of Rights, as you can imagine.
It's going to be clarified, and I'm going to turn that part of it over to the city attorney, because I don't know exactly how that happens.
Is Mr. Feldman around? Can we talk?
Right, it's right there.
There he is. I didn't see him through the cameras.
While he's walking over, what are your thoughts about Councilmember Kubash not recusing himself on that card?
It is up to each council member to decide when they have a conflict of interest and to declare it. And it's a matter of whether there is someone who wants to bring a complaint or whether a citizen decides to take exception to that through the electoral process. It's really not something where the city, it falls down to the integrity of the individual. He made an announcement so everybody would know that his brother represented one of the plaintiff, I guess, depending on which way you look at it.
Right.
One of, so, all right.
I only found out about the discovery request yesterday myself as well. We have a docket, over 1,000 cases in the city. I can't possibly see every single document that's found. I will say that when I looked at it, I felt that it was overly broad. I would not have worded it that way myself. It's unfortunate that it has been construed as some effort to infringe upon religious liberty. All we are looking for are communications regarding from any of these pastors who were organizing the petition drive, any communications regarding the petition process. We already have evidence that one of the pastors, Pastor Welch, gave specific instructions to circulators, we have it on the videotape, about the importance of the verification of the pages. Yet they come into the courthouse today and argue that that doesn't matter, that it wasn't necessary to follow the charter with respect to verification of the pages, yet they were giving instructions to people saying, you have to do this or the pages might be thrown out. So that issue is at the very core of the litigation. That's the only communications that we are interested in, nothing else. No sermons, just communications, in whatever form they took place. Again, I would have worded it differently myself, but I didn't write it, but I have to live with it.
It was the outside counsel who
Yes,
wrote it.
yes.
So is the
Well, there is a motion to quash pending. We will respond, and in the response, we will clarify. But all this hysteria about how we're trying to infringe, and all because of the use of the word sermons, is really ridiculous. This was, a lawyer trying to make a discovery request as specific as possible, which is lawyers ordinarily are charged to do. And it wasn't worded in the way that I would have worded it, but I've just told you what the intent was.
How would you have worded it?
Just all communications regarding the hero petition or the petition process. Period.
And not use the word term
I
service?
would not have done including but not limited to.